What is a branding specialist doing speaking at an event for museums? And an even more difficult question, what does the new generation of generative AI have to do with Marcel Duchamp's famous urinal from last century? I have no idea. But I knew somebody who does, and that is our very next speaker. Please give it up for Stef Hamerlinck.
So, today I hope to show you that the future of brand, I mean the museum of course, is bright and generative. But first, a little story. So, big fan of Marcel Duchamp. And in 1917, he flipped a bit the art industry on its head by posing some questions. Okay, you can admire the desktop icons now. Let's keep going. By posing some questions about what is art, what is reality, what is the value of art, and so on. And so I'm happy to announce you that there is a second coming of Marcel, and I'm happy to introduce you to this new Marcel.
Hi everyone, welcome at the Museum of the Future. I mean, the future of the museum. I want to raise some questions about the nature of reality itself. Enjoy this keynote, which will be delivered by my lovely sidekick, Stef, while I enjoy the view.
Voilà, that's Marcel. Apparently, I'm his sidekick. I think it's the other way around, but anyway, let's continue. So, indeed, as Robin said, I'm a brand marketing expert. During my daytime, I help build the brand at Alan, which is health insurance. I'm also a brand consultant for many brands, anything from beef patties to toys. It doesn't really matter. I'm also a big fan of mascots. My wife would say probably that I have a fetish for it by now, but anyway, what am I doing here in this place of culture, of elevation, with all these lovely people? I think you could argue that the museum is like the ultimate brand, right? You guys have amazing content that you have to package up in a way that's interesting, that's memorable, that makes people feel something. So I'm actually quite jealous of you guys, because you have something that a lot of brands are trying to do, which is become authentic and have an interesting story to tell. But you already have that. So I hope a lot of what I'll be sharing today is as interesting, as exciting for you as it is for me as like a creative guy. And I want to share with you two futures. One is very dark, very bleak, a bit depressing, but I think we have to address it. We have to address the elephant in the room, let's say. And then hopefully we'll move on to something a bit brighter. Oh, I had a fun little animation. There it is. Okay, so some videos might not be loading as fast as we want, but anyway. So imagine this world where all the museums just feel the same. Well, actually, that's already happening in a way, right? The sea of sameness, it already exists. There's a lot of challenges, there's a lot of things that are the same. And this is a stat that came up that I found kind of interesting and probably sounds familiar. 77 cities hosted a Van Gogh experience in the space of 3 years. I mean, it's amazing. It's an amazing artist. Is it creative? Does it create distinct identity for those museums? Probably not. And the problem is a lot bigger than, of course, the museum world. There's a study done by Ipsos that says that only 15% of companies, of brands, is recognized as being them. That means that the other 85% is not recognized. 85% of marketing budgets, communication budgets, down the drain, because people do not know who's talking. So it's quite a problem. But it's not enough yet. Because something is changing. As you've probably seen today, AI has entered the room. And that sea of sameness is becoming a swamp of sameness. We know that already today, the quantity of AI-generated articles online has surpassed that of normal human-written articles. And it's the same for images, and it's the same for video. And on top of that, obviously, we have finance people that are very happy, like, give it to me, it's cheaper, it's faster, we can potentially fire a few people. Maybe that's the ultimate death to all of this, of course. And so all of that leads to this downward spiral that is sometimes described as the sloppening. Doesn't sound good, right? And so what is slop? Because there's a lot of talk about slop, this is not slop. What does it mean when we say slop? Well, there's three things that I think define slop. The first one is that it's pure engagement clickbait. When you see something that is just designed only to grab your attention, only to make you feel something just for the sake of it, without any other objective, any other message in mind, it's usually slop, as the beautiful example you could see here. Also, very little to no human input, because why do people get angry when they see slop? Because they feel like it's taking away attention from human-made creativity. And so usually what you see, how these things are made, it's just text to video or text to prompt. Very simple things like, give me a cat in a sock, and that's about it in terms of the human input. And then finally, what is also important is all of this content is kind of like a twist on what's already there. It's a remix of IP, of memes, of cat videos, of whatever. It's just not tailored to anything specific. And bonus points for destroying the environment and, of course, being unethically trained, right? And we love it, apparently. The most viral clips at the moment, the most viral content, the most downloaded apps, it's all generative AI, it's all slop. And Marcel loves slop too, by the way. Oh.
I love slop! Give me more of that blubber! Oh yeah! Yeah! Slop King! I love it! I love slop!
Okay, Marcel. Okay, okay. Sorry for that, sorry. Sometimes he gets a bit too excited. So that was the dark and murky and kind of depressing future, which I hope we don't end up in. And all of you, of course, have a say in that. So let's look at a future that is a bit more exciting, one that I at least hope that is happening as well. And so in this future, we're not cooked, but we're cooking. Imagine a world where the museum is this living, breathing, talking entity, engaging and delighting the audience, driven by human creativity and also powered by generative AI. Let's have a look at an example that I personally have been working on, not for a museum in this case, but for the brand I initially talked about, Alan. If the video loads.
In a world not so far from ours, there exists a remarkable species. They move because it feels good. They spend time with their family and friends. They see a doctor before something breaks. They eat well, and most of the time, they sleep well. They are healthy in a quiet, ordinary, boring kind of way. And it is beautiful.
So that's a little commercial I made for Alan. So let's do a quick slop fit check. Is this slop or not? If you look at the first part, is it pure engagement clickbait? No, it's a video designed with a specific message, in this case with the objective of making people aware of Alan's mission. Was it like no human or very little input? No. Me and a colleague worked on it for 2 weeks, from script, storyboarding. We did the voiceovers ourselves, and then we used AI to animate and render some of these scenes. And then the last part is also important. The characters you see in this video, the product you see in this video, it's all tailored to this specific brand universe. So it's not just a meme remix or anything. So you could argue that it's not slop. And for the final 2 bullets, well, there's again a lot of discussion about this, but you could argue that a traditional workflow for like a couple of weeks or even months with 5 to 7 people with a 3D production agency or a real film agency has a much bigger ecological footprint. In any case, this is like a hard to predict, let's say, but one of the things that is also very interesting is when you produce these types of assets, you can recycle them, you can reuse them for a lot of things, and that is a benefit of AI. Once you create that content, you can leverage it in many ways. There's also a lot of newer models which we're trying to work with, like Firefly, Moon Valley, that are trained on ethically licensed materials, and so not just on stolen materials. And of course, all of you here probably have your own content and your own context to train on, which is the best possible way, of course, to do it. But is it perfect? No. There is still a lot of work to be done, and I think we need to address that and be fair about it. It's not a perfect world, but as a creative person building brands, I can't not get excited about this. And so as I said before, the most important part to make something feel not generic and not slop is context. She agrees. So if you feed AI no context, it will fill in the blanks for you. Like this person tried when having like a full-grown chicken character, the AI kind of thought, well, yeah, I need legs there, but of course, that was not what the artist intended. So you need to be more deliberate, you need to be opinionated when you feed AI things. For example, when I give an image model, in this case, Midjourney, just a basic text prompt saying, give me a painting of a blue dog. It's not bad. I mean, I could not paint it, but anyone could prompt it, so it's quite generic. If I feed the same image model more context, obviously I kind of stole this from Michael Borreman, so don't sue me for it, but at least it gives you an idea of once you start feeding more context, both multimodal context, so image context, text context, you can even feed it audio context, there's a lot of ways. You can get a lot more interesting images that convey a certain feeling, have a certain message, and then you go beyond slop. But of course, people are still getting upset. Trust me, I know, like my LinkedIn is sometimes a bit of a hot and fiery mess of people getting angry. So what do we do about that? Well, because as an institution, obviously, you don't want to get backlash on this. Well, a couple of arguments there. The first one is that there is plenty of research that actually, when they ask people without knowing what type of content they're watching, that they actually even prefer AI-generated content. Now, given that's not always true, because as we've seen, like a lot of the slop, it's really not that fun to watch if you have some taste. But at least in the research, we see that when the argument and the label is pulled out, that it doesn't really matter. And we're getting to a point where nobody really knows if it's AI generated or not. So that, of course, begs the question, how can you create backlash if people don't know or if they don't recognize it, and even if they prefer it? It's an interesting conundrum, and we'll see where it goes. Again, don't go watch this stuff. It's terrible. But just last week, the fastest growing TikTok account ever, 3.3 million followers in 10 days for Fruit Love Island. Terrible, slop, all of the things, but there's real people watching this and engaging with it. So it's easy to dismiss as like, yeah, people hate it and they won't watch it. It's just not true. It's quite the opposite. But so we can do better than that, luckily. And the main point is really that I'm not here to tell you that generative AI will take over and like nothing else will exist. It's a new medium, just as you had photography that didn't take over painting. This is a fun example from a recent short film from Gucci, where they used a little bit, just generative AI for a small piece. scenes, by the way. So the transition between those two moments was generative AI, and it conveyed a certain feeling that was hard to reproduce with other VFX or shot in real life. So that's where I think it becomes really interesting. And some people are even imitating it. This is very weird, but somehow it intrigued me. So now people are acting like they are AI, a weird converging world. I love this. The internet is a beautiful place, right? And so obviously there's a turn side to the medal that realness and authenticity will become a sort of like flex, an even more important thing, because when you don't know what's real anymore, being able to convey that is also important. And we see that right now. There's this trend called artisan marketing, where basically brands are putting out interesting content, commercials, but at the same time they're also putting out behind the scenes of how they made it, to show that, hey, this is real what we're making. And sometimes it becomes really interesting again with this converging culture where you see this is like an ad that looked like it was made on PlayStation 1 or something, but actually they made it in real life. They put on these low pixel masks on people and they made them act like digital NPCs, which is a very weird and interesting thing. But then again, they show the content of like, this is not just digital, this is something we made. So the reality is that I think both things will be true. And again, all of you are sitting on a gold mine where on the one hand, you have a lot of content to do things with, to train generative AI on, to provide models with. And at the same time, you provide real experiences. So you can give people that behind the scenes look. And I think that is a very good position to be in. And I think the future is really hybrid. It's not for generative AI or against generative AI, it's how you use it and where you use it in the right places. And again, Robin already, no, sorry, not Robin, but the speaker before me already showed a lot of really good examples of bringing paintings to life in a way that was not seen before. Or even the video you saw in the beginning, that was not me prompting a model for Marcel to do things. That was actually me driving the performance. If the video, oh, sorry, let me go back. That was actually me driving the performance in the safety and comfort of my home and putting Marcel on the Atomium. So like the creative possibilities for this, for a one person in their bedroom to do anything is quite astonishing and exciting to me, at least. And so, yes, we can get it a little bit cheaper, a little bit faster, and if you do it right, you can also make sure that your audience is not just watching brain rot or slop. So I think that is an exciting evolution. So finally, let's try and summarize. How do you make the museum future-proof in this wild world with different futures and slop? The first rule, and I think that ties back to what we saw about the Van Gogh and the only 15% of companies being distinctive. If you are not recognizable, it's basically impossible. Whatever you do, whatever beautiful things you create, it won't matter because people won't attribute it to you. So at the end of the day, it won't get you visitors or attention. And that sounds simple, but it's not. You know, some brands have built decades and decades of recognizability, like Heinz asked people to draw ketchup, and people started drawing their products. If you reach that level of iconicness, of course, you have a very strong brand. And not all assets are created equally. And what we mean with assets in the branding world is things like logos, slogans, jingles. Actually, funny enough, the most interesting assets and the most memorable assets, according to research, our characters, our jingles, our sonic, our sound design, and not logos, brand colors, slogans. And usually That's interesting because most brands, most museums have a good identity, but don't have these things. And there's a huge opportunity right now with generative AI to do that. As you saw in the presentation of WUK, you can have real avatars explaining the story of your content in a way that's much more interesting than just an audio guide. And so, hooray for mascots, I would say. And then, of course, it's one thing to be recognized, great, but then you need to be entertaining. We've seen a huge decline in what is called showmanship versus salesmanship. Most companies today are communicating in a very rational way. Come to us because we're better, because we show you this, because we do that. They don't entertain people. They don't do showmanship as it's used to be. And actually, when we look at the data, we see that entertainment, creativity, these are the things that make communications more memorable and that stick. So you not only grab the attention, but you can hold it for much longer. And as you also know, attention, reach costs more money today. So reaching the same amount of people now costs you more than double as what it did a decade ago. So this fight for attention, of course, is real and it's there for everyone. Just another example of entertainment, influencer in, I don't know what century of London this is, but...
Welcome to Victorian London. It's
Victorian London.
I genuinely cannot breathe. This is not fog. This is just pollution. They are just fine with this. This is a normal Tuesday for them. Excuse me, what is that place?
The workhouse.
What's a workhouse?
Where the
And it goes on for a while, but what you can see here is, again, it's an interesting way to bring to life a context, a historical context, cultural context, in a much more modern and interesting way in the language of social media. Is it the most entertaining clip? No, it was just something interesting and relevant to today's topic. So becoming a showman or showwoman, again, I think is something we can all learn from and can be very powerful. And then the last rule, be playable. We see that people are remixing content, now especially with generative AI, which allows you to upload any image, take a screenshot, and do with it as you please. There's a sort of like open source mentality. And of course, if you have interesting content, art, cultural content, then people will play around with that. And it's happening, whether you want it or not. We've seen Harry Potter raves and, let's go back, SpongeBob being arrested. These companies obviously don't like that it's happening, but it is happening. And the question is what you do with it. You have strong IP, you have strong content. What do you do with it? Well, the playbook is typically you first build strong IP, and then you build experience around that IP, which is exactly what a museum is, right? You walk in and you're able to consume some of that, hopefully in an interesting way. But not a lot of brands or institutions go for that last step of actually inviting people in to play. And that's an interesting one. Imagine if Ghibli, for example, the iconic movies that now everyone is Ghiblifying themselves. Imagine if they had created a sandbox instead of just fought against all of these IP infringements, which is basically impossible if everybody has access to the tools. And so this is just another example from Doodles, which is like a very iconic illustrator that created this world where people can now come in, upload their own pictures, and get a doodlified image of them back. And I think that's an interesting example of how to use AI, invite people in your world in a way that's interesting. And we see this, it's coming into the art world as well. Rijksmuseum did this interesting contest where people were able to access their database, get artworks, remix them, and then those people's artworks were presented in the museum, which again, I think it's an interesting opportunity. So, turns your museum into a sandbox. And if you want to have some fun, obviously, Marcel has his own sandbox where you can go do some fun stuff like hug Marcel or just generate images. It's a fun little online way of giving the fans access to that, and people have been sharing that online, so it obviously also builds a brand. And it's not just interactivity, it's also conversational. I think you all have been having conversations with your Claudes and your OpenAI, so there is a clear opportunity to make your content accessible in a way that's not just looking at it or even interacting with it, but actually to put it in a conversation. And I'm sorry, Clippy, you were a bit too soon, but today we're getting there. Oh, yeah, that was just another companion. And then the last part is also, again, like we've seen many examples of, sorry, the video is not loading. We've seen many examples of paintings being brought to life, but paintings actually becoming a sort of like GTA game. That is the next level that we're seeing. For example, with Google's Genie tree, where you can give any image or a set of images and a set of rules, and it will turn it into a small video game. So that is, of course, a very interesting thing to do with content you have. Sorry. And so the 3 rules: be you, be super recognizable, be iconic, be highly entertaining, and be playable. So, are we cooked or are we cooking? We can discuss it later because we don't have any time anymore, but thank you.